Welcome back to East Texas Now. Joined with us at the desk to start off this 1 o'clock hour, Blake Holland is here with us. Now, Blake, we've been talking about some chillier temperatures. Yesterday got below freezing, and that's not going to be our last day that we wake up needing to maybe winterize our pipes. There's always those bigger issues. You know, the last couple years haunted us with some power issues, and so you got to actually talk to ERCOT, right?
So yeah, well, we didn't ourselves go one-on-one with ERCOT, but we did do some kind of deep dives today on what ERCOT is saying about being prepared for the winter time. And you mentioned that forecast that we had earlier. As we know right now, things look pretty good for the next 7 days at least when we look at the extended forecast. But now is really the time to begin thinking about how cold it really could get and all of the problems that come along with that cold weather, instead of having to think about it once we know, okay, in a few days we've got to get ready for this. And so that's really the perspective ERCOT takes on this as well, preparing months, if not years in advance of winter weather events. So we look at all of this through the lens of what happened in 2021, right? February of 2021, when we saw that historic winter weather event across the entire state of Texas. And that is the season, and that is the year, you'll remember, that we lost power on the ERCOT grid. Many people without power for many days, unable to heat their homes. People on top of that, they had water outages because their pipes were freezing, and pipes inside of their house were freezing because they couldn't heat their homes because there was no power being generated. And the ERCOT grid, which is kind of like an electric island for the state of Texas, didn't have enough resources to fight the cold and to fight the power generation obstacles that came their way. And so people lost power. So just to remind people what ERCOT is and how it works and how it's different from other power grids across the country. So Texas has its own power grid, ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, and they operate a power grid that covers most of the state of Texas. Our area, East Texas, is pretty unique because we're actually split right down the middle when it comes to who services who. So if you're in Smith County or, say, Henderson County, Angelina County, you're going to be serviced by the ERCOT grid. That's the western part of East Texas. The eastern part of East Texas, those counties along the Texas-Louisiana state line, they're actually serviced by another grid that actually is hooked up to many states across the south, the southeast, and that's a national grid. So across our country, there are two big national grids, and then the state of Texas, we have our own grid, which is often referred to as an electrical island because we are isolated from the rest of those grids. Although there is talks about, and we'll talk about this later tonight, talks about maybe connecting in with one of those grids. So that's kind of a tease to what we'll have later. So last month, the CEO of ERCOT went before their board of directors in a regular meeting to kind of brief them on exactly what's been happening leading up to the winter time to prepare for whatever may come our way, maybe another February 2021. Of course, we all cross our fingers, our arms, our legs, hoping that that doesn't happen. But without knowing for sure, we have to be ready. And so I want you to listen in as the CEO of ERCOT, Pablo Vega, he updated the board of directors last month on how ERCOT is ready and maybe some of the challenges we could see with the grid this coming winter.
All right.
One is there is increasing risk. We see that because of the increased demand. Demand is growing, and we need to make sure we can meet that demand with the resources, all of the resources, supply and demand resources on the grid. But at the same time, we are as ready as we have ever been to deal with the challenges of a winter season. That is also true. That is because of the evolution in the supply chain map, the practicing of how to be ready for emergency management conditions, the continued growth of a variety of different types of resources on the system. All of those are also true. So while we have increased risk that we have to manage, we are also as well prepared as we have ever been to deal with those risks. And so both of those facts are true. And sometimes they can seem at odds with each other, but they're really two independent points that are both accurate and both reflect the state of where we are as we head into this winter season.
All right, so again, that's the CEO of ERCOT there speaking before the board of directors last month with just a portion of his comments about how they are getting ready for the winter, how they've already done that, and what we could see to come. So you mentioned, or he mentioned rather, 2 points there, right? He said we're as ready as we ever have been. He mentioned all of the things that have been done. We know after what happened in February of 2021, there was legislation that came through Austin, passed, became law, that requires them to inspect all of these power generating units across the state. And in some earlier comments, he mentioned over 1,500 inspections have occurred over the last 2 years, 500 more to happen in the coming weeks. Also, he mentioned another point. And he said both of these things can be true at the same time, and that is there is an increasing risk when it comes to the Texas power grid of not being able to provide power to all of the people who need it because of the increasing demand. And so this is something we've been talking about for 2 years now, if not more, especially after what happened in 2021, because so many people are moving to the state of Texas. It's a matter of keeping up with the supply and the demand, right? Demand continues to grow, supply does too. So that means they constantly have to be rethinking about power sources and how they can provide power to all of the people in Texas, especially when you have a winter weather type event where some of those power generating sources are going to be offline.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about the major risk here, in the wintertime, the highest power demand comes early in the morning. So you think about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, that's typically when we're reaching our daytime low of the day. So when you see on the 7-day forecast that Cody or Mark or Katie or Andrew throws up, that bottom number, that's the low temperature. That temperature typically occurs in the early morning hours. People are typically asleep. Their heaters are typically running because they are all wanting to stay nice, warm, and cozy in their beds.
Course.
And I'm the same way.
Same.
Okay, I turn the heater up about 3 o'clock in the morning, it seems like.
You have to.
Because I go to bed hot, but I wake up and you're cold.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Your body temperature's lowered.
Absolutely.
All kinds of things at play here. That's when the peak power demand happens. One of the major sources of power generation that is offline at that time is solar power.
Oh, I didn't think about
Because
that.
there is no sun at that early hour of the morning. Just as the sun begins to come up, those solar generating units can get online, but obviously it's going to take a while to generate power to really become a viable source of power.
That makes sense.
Along with all of the other sources. You know, if you look this morning, and I did on the ERCOT dashboard, when you look at the different sources of power, natural gas was number one, right? That makes up a big chunk of power supply. We know that there were problems with some natural gas equipment back in February of 2021. We saw some problems last winter. Also, some new rules and regulations dealing with getting those units up to par when it comes to dealing with winter weather, because really it's been about weatherization, making sure all of these different things that have failed us in the past can now be ready to keep generating power when we need them the most.
Absolutely, and you know, like you said, it really is a balancing act. It creates a sense of comfort to know that, hey, legislation has been passed, checks and balances have, you know, been attempted. There has been things put into place, but there's also the question mark of the looming. We don't know how much power we're going to need in order to avoid something like that and history repeating itself. Steps have been taken, but are there enough steps? No one knows. And so later on tonight, what more can we expect from the story?
Yeah, so tonight we're going to hear more from the CEO of ERCOT. We're going to take a little bit more of an in-depth approach to exactly what they're predicting for this winter season. And at the same time, we're going to go to a local hardware store here in town and talk about the demand for generators, because since February 2021, people get really nervous about the winter time.
Well,
because
understandably,
not all that long ago, we can remember sitting in our houses without power when it was very, very cold.
Absolutely.
And so generator demand has only gone up since then. Long before any super cool temperatures move in, people are already stocking up on that. And at the same time, also doing other weatherization things. So in February 2021, not only did we have a major power outage that affected millions of Texans, you had upwards of 200 people who died. You also had problems with water systems. You had problems with plumbing within your own home and just outside your own home on your property. And so we're going to kind of dive into all kinds of things there. Again, all of this not in preparation for any type of specific event. We don't have a crystal ball. We're not saying anything's going to happen. We hope nothing happens. But the goal is that all of these agencies and also individuals probably want to be ready just in case.
It's all about preparing. It's all about looking ahead, making sure that we already know what decisions we need to make before that conversation starts.
And I know people get tired of that, right? Prepare for this, prepare for that, have this in your car, have this in your home. But
until you need it.
For those who've been through it, and in 2021, we all went through it in parts of East Texas. You know you want to be ready.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, Blake. Thanks for helping us go that one step further. We look forward to hearing more from you, your story in ERCOT here later on in the 6.
Yeah, we'll see you at 6.
All right, sounds good.